Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Us Sunan classes from the kitab written by Maulana Zafar Ahmad Thanvi rahimahullah. It's our 8th class tonight thus far, and we are currently on page 80 of volume number 1. So last week we had touched upon the point that when you are rinsing your mouth and rinsing your nose in wudu, that you use separate water for each of them. And we went through a number of narrations in that regard. The new chapter that we are dealing with tonight continues still on from that same topic with extra ahadith which were not mentioned last time. So let's begin. He says, Babu ifradil madmadati min al-istinshaqi. The chapter regarding the fact that rinsing the mouth is separate from rinsing the nose, in the sense that you will use different water for each of them. So he starts by quoting hadith number 22 عن عبد الله الصنابحي رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا توضأ العبد فمضمض خرجت الخطايا من فيه. Hazrat Abdullah al-Sunabihi رضي الله عنه, famous Sahabi, he reports that Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, when a person, a slave of Allah, when he makes wudu and he rinses his mouth, خرجت الخطايا من فيه, the sins leaves him out of his mouth, min fihi, from his mouth. فإذا استنثر خرجت الخطايا من أنفه. When he rinses his nose, his sins leave him through his nose. فإذا غسل وجهه خرجت الخطايا من وجهه حتى تخرج من تحت أشفار عينيه. When he washes his face, the sins leave he run off from his face, so much so that they run out from beneath his eyelashes. فإذا غسل يديه خرجت الخطايا من يديه حتى تخرج من تحت أظفاره. When he washes his hands here meaning his arms, when he washes his hands and his arms, his sins fall off from his hands, so much so that it comes out from underneath his fingernails. فإذا مسح برأسه خرجت الخطايا من رأسه حتى تخرج من أذنيه. When he wipes his head, his sins fall off from his head, so much so that it comes out from his ears. فإذا غسل رجليه خرجت الخطايا من رجليه حتى تخرج من تحت أظفار رجليه. And when he washes his feet, his sins fall off from his feet until it comes out from beneath his toenails. ثم كان مشيه إلى المسجد وصلاته نافلة. Thereafter, he's walking to the masjid and his salah therein is extra. It don't mean it's nafil. It means it's extra reward for him, because for every step, as another hadith mentions, for every step he takes, there is reward for him. And for while he sits in the masjid, there is reward for him while he waits for the salah. Intidaru salati, the person who waits for salah, it's as though he is in salah. And then of course, when he performs his tahiyyatul masjid, when he performs his fard salah, when he performs his sunnah and nawafil in the masjid, it's just reward upon reward upon reward. This hadith focused on the rewards that a person gets just simply from the wudu and the amount of sins that fall off from a person. Now, what is the point of putting this hadith in this chapter? One of the things, like I said, we get from this kitab is, people don't know all of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhu. Many people wouldn't even have heard of Hazrat Abdullah as-Sunabihi radiyallahu anhu, even though he reports many narrations. But anyway, so you get a chance to hear the names of new Sahaba who perhaps you may not have known of before. So if that was the only perk we got from the kitab, then that alone would have been good enough. But anyway, the hadith where خرجت الخطايا من فيه, that the sins fall out from his mouth. فإذا استنثر, thereafter when he rinses his nose, the sins fall out from his nose. So he's showing that it was one action, thereafter a second action. The question which was asked now last night, in fact, with regards to wa and fa. What's the difference? It say وَإِذَا اسْتَنْثَرَ. If you used it like this, just to link the two classes, when you use wa meaning and, fa denotes time, as I mentioned yesterday. So فَإِذَا اسْتَنْثَرَ, thereafter when he rinses his nose, it shows that this one comes first, that one comes after it. So it shows it as two individual actions, not one action. Otherwise, fa would not have been used. That's just from a linguistic perspective. But in any case, so this is the correlation between the hadith and the chapter and the mas'ala that we derive from it, that you wash your mouth separately from washing your nose. And you look at this hadith here, you are making your wudu as is regular, and yet you find all of this extra rewards that Allah gives a person for you just making the wudu, which is required of you. And yet, one additional point which also ties in with the next mas'ala which is coming on, when it says, فَإِذَا مَسَحَ بِرَأْسِهِ خَرَجَتِ الْخَطَايَا مِنْ رَأْسِهِ حَتَّى تَخْرُجَ مِنْ أُذُنَيْهِ. When he wipes his head, his sins fall off from his head until it comes out by his ears. This links with another famous hadith, al-udhunani min al-ra's, that the ears are from the head. We're not talking about from a physical perspective, that your ears on your head and not on your chest. We obviously all know that. But what that hadith means, we'll come to it in shortly, inshallah. Any case, so this hadith رواه مالك والنسائي وابن ماجه والحاكم وقال صحيح على شرطهما ولا علة له والصنابحي صحابي مشهور كذا في ترغيب. Imam Malik, Imam Nasai, Imam Ibn Majah, Imam Hakim, all have reported this hadith. Imam Hakim said it is sahih according to the criteria of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, rahimahumullah, and there's no fault found within this chain. And Hadrat Abdullah Sunabihi radiyallahu anhu is a famous sahabi, as is mentioned in At-Targhib. At least all of this here is mentioned in At-Targhib. Okay, so that was that hadith. We move on to our 23rd hadith, which is عن طلحة بن مصرف عن أبيه عن جده قال دخلت يعني على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو يتوضأ والماء يسيل من وجهه ولحيته على صدره فرأيته يفصل بين المضمضة والاستنشاق. This narration is reported from Talha ibn Musarrif, from his father, from his grandfather. His grandfather was a Sahabi, radiyallahu anhu, who said that I heard, or at least I entered upon Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was making wudu. وَالْمَاءُ يَسِيلُ مِنْ وَجْهِهِ, and the water was running off the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his beard, running from the face and beard of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam onto his chest. So فرأيته يفصل بين المضمضة والاستنشاق, and I saw that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made a distinction using separate water for rinsing the mouth and a separate water for rinsing the nose. رواه أبو داود وسكت عنه هو والمنذري فهو صالح للاحتجاج عندهما وحسنه الحافظ أبو عمر وابن صلاح كما نقل الشوكاني في السيل الجرار كذا في العرف الشذي ولفظ الطبراني يأخذ لكل واحدة ماء جديدا كما سنذكره في الحاشية. So this hadith is reported by Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah, and he and Imam al-Mundhiri rahimahullah kept silent with regards to the chain. In other words, they deemed it as being authentic. So it's suitable to use as proof according to the two of them, and it's graded as being Hasan according to Hafiz Abu Umar and by Imam Ibn al-Salah, famous Imam of Hadith. One of the famous books of Usul al-Hadith is written by Muqaddimah Ibn Salah. If you've come across it, it's that Imam Ibn al-Salah. So anyway, this is mentioned by Imam al-Shawkani in his kitab Saylul Jarrar. It's a different one of his from Nailul Awtar. And it's also mentioned in Al-Arafu Shadi, which is actually from the lessons conducted by Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahimahullah, and his students now compiled from those durus, and they put it into a kitab Al-Arafu Shadi, which is a explanation of Sunan al-Tirmidhi. He says, and the wording of Imam al-Tabarani rahimahullah is يَأْخُذُ لِكُلِّ وَاحِدَةٍ مَاءً جَدِيدًا, which is referring to the same narration in question, which Imam Abu Dawud reported, that يَفْصِلُ بَيْنَ الْمَضْمَضَةِ وَالْإِسْتِنشَاقِ, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam used separate water for both of them. In the narration which Imam al-Tabarani reports, the hadith mentions that يَأْخُذُ لِكُلِّ وَاحِدَةٍ مَاءً جَدِيدًا, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam took fresh water for rinsing the mouth and fresh water for rinsing the nose. He says he will mention this narration in the Hashia, which is this text which you can see now coming in. But, you can see it's a lengthy chapter over here, which we don't actually have any need to go through all of that. One of our main purposes here is not to read each and every single word in the kitab, even though that would have been nice to do, but our main point is to be able to understand the dalil that we have. So as you can see, we've already gone through numerous ahadith for the proof as to why we make our wudu in this particular manner. And we're not yet done. You come to the 24th hadith. عن عثمان رضي الله تعالى عنه مرفوعا Hazrat Uthman radiallahu anhu reports this hadith marfu'an. I explain from a mustalah al-hadith perspective. When we say a hadith is marfu' or it's reported marfu'an, it means Hazrat Uthman radiallahu anhu is saying this is what the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had said. So even though he don't verbally here state that qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but these words, as you can see from the brackets over here, are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man tawadda'a faghasala yadayhi thalathan, thumma tamadmada thalathan, thumma istanshaqa thalathan, wa ghasala wajhahu thalathan, wa yadayhi ila al-mirfaqayn, wa masaha bi ra'sihi, thumma ghasala rijlayhi, thumma lam yatakallam hatta yaqulu أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله غفر له ما بين الوضوءين." That narration which is reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever makes wudu and he washes his hands thrice, thereafter he rinses his mouth thrice, then he rinses his nose 3 times, he washes his face 3 times, and he washes his arms until the elbows, and he wipes his head, thereafter he washes his feet, and thereafter ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتَكَلَّمْ, then he does not speak, meaning he doesn't speak to anyone, because part of the method of wudu is that you don't speak to anyone. There's a narration which speaks about the shaitan that comes to distract the person in wudu and get you to speak and stuff like this. That jinn's name is Walahan. But anyway, so part of your wudu is that you don't speak to people while you are conducting your wudu. Okay, question over here. Within the Hanafi madhab, is there any opinion or basis to use rinse the mouth and take water into the nose together 3 times instead of doing it separately? Not from the Hanafi madhab perspective. Maybe you may find within the Hanafi madhab somebody held a different opinion. But as far as the madhab stands, you can see we've got numerous ahadith which act as our proof. So, you know, you can look at the ahadith. It's not like we've been quoting a lot of fabrications and stuff. It's clear-cut narrations. As a result, where it's mentioned clearly that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took water separately, why do we want to turn away from the clear-cut sunnah for something else? So our purpose is only just to follow the sunnah, and here we have our ahadith, thus we follow it because it is the way of the sunnah. Okay, another question over here. Good question, actually. When making wudu with a mud, does one need to take new water for each of the 3 garglings or nose cleanings, or will 1 scoop of water to be used for all 3 be okay? When you are making your wudu with a mud, even then a person would do it with 3 scoops for the 3 rinsings. Now, this is where a person gets to also understand the issue of moods. And I made mention of this before in the past, that as far as the madhahib are concerned, there's a lot of difference of opinion with regards to how much a mood actually is. So you've got opinions ranging from a couple of, say, 400 and something mil up to over a whole liter, as the various madhahib and ulama differ as to how much a mud was. And the reason is because a mud was not used for measuring liters. It was used for grain and stuff of the sort. So you had a mud of Medina, a mud of Makkah, a mud of Sham. Everyone had their own mud because it was a container that they used to dish with, eat out of, and stuff of this nature. So therefore, you found differences in the size of the mud. So is it possible that perhaps at different occasions Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used different containers, hence having different amounts? Yes, definitely. We can't discount that possibility, which is why you would also possibly find that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on occasion you washed parts thrice, sometimes twice, sometimes once. Perhaps it may have been. Yes, we say everything is from a point of ta'aleem, but we can also take it from the point that perhaps you can see that if you are running on less water, then you wash less times. But if you know you've got sufficient water here for making your wudu, then you wash your full 3 times. But yes, when you are making your wudu, you would and you're rinsing your mouth or rinsing your nose, you will take fresh water each time. And not to misconstrue the issue, you are not taking a scoop, filling your mouth to capacity and gargling and spitting the whole thing. That's not what is being meant when we talk about rinsing the mouth and rinsing the nose in wudu. Because obviously, if that was the case, you'd be ending up using more than a liter and something in your wudu. So what it means is you put some water in your mouth, you rinse it around, and you spit it out. And likewise, you put some in your nose. You don't put your head down and snort it all out. That's not the way that it's to be done. As a result, and there was actually a video of one Pakistani Sheikh Malana. I think it could have been a Salafi anyway. But anyway, he made wudu using a glass of water. We're not talking here about a jug. We're not talking about a mud. We're talking about a glass which probably contains about 200 ml, if so much, of water. And he literally rinsed his nose and his mouth and made a full wudu out of a glass. And what was more, there was still water left in the glass when he was done. So the thing is, sometimes it seems extra difficult because we're not accustomed to using this bit of water. When you come in the masjid and you hear the taps are running, somebody's making wudu, and he probably uses up 20 liters of water in the method of him making wudu, while in reality, a glass may have been sufficient. So it's more that we need to focus on perfecting the method we make wudu rather than thinking we need more water to make wudu. But anyway, yes, it's simply put, we will use separate water for each mouth rinsing and for each nose rinsing 3 times and 3 times, and not one handful for 3 mouth and 1 handful for 3 nose. And likewise, when you washing your arms, you will take 3 handfuls when you are washing it in that manner too. Okay, so anyway, we were going on. And then he washes his face thrice, and he washes his hands until the elbows. And then thereafter, he wipes his head and he washes his feet. And he does not speak to anyone until he says, and that's at least where we digressed off from, is that he doesn't speak to anyone. In your wudu, you're not supposed to be speaking in any case, but this extra puts puts some extra emphasis on the fact that you're not supposed to be speaking to anyone. Otherwise, you miss out on this. So you don't speak to anyone, and you say this dua: أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Then what happens? غفر له ما بين الوضوءين. Everything that you had done from your previous wudu until this wudu, Allah forgives you for those sins. Obviously, as we know, time and again, these refer to minor sins, not major sins. Major sins require tawbah, that is separate. But for minor sins, this making of a proper wudu first time and then second time in between will cause your minor sins to be forgiven. Now it says رواه أبو يعلى وهو ضعيف كذا في كنز العمال وإنما ذكرناه اعتضادا لما قبله. He says this is reported by Imam Abu Ya'la rahimahullah in his Mus'ab, but the narration has some weakness in the chain, as is mentioned in Kanzul Ummal. But he says the reason we put it here is to add extra strength to the previous narrations. Now you may ask, since the narration is weak, can we make amal upon it? Number one, there is nothing new in here which is not found elsewhere. That's point number one. Point number two, when it comes to du'as such as this year, then that taking something like this from a point of a narration which is weak, there is no harm. So if you wanted to talk about what amal you can make upon it, you can recite this du'a after you make your wudu, and you would be doing nothing wrong. And Allah knows best. Anyhow, let's move on to our 25th hadith, which is عن حبان بن واسع الأنصاري أن أباه حدثه أنه سمع عبد الله بن زيد بن عاصم المازني رضي الله عنه يذكر أنه رأى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يتوضأ فتمضمض ثم استنثر ثم غسل وجهه ثلاثا. الحديث رواه سعيد بن منصور ومسلم وأبو داود والترمذي. Habban ibn Wasi al-Ansari narrates from his father, who said that he heard Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Asim al-Mazini mentioning that he had seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam making wudu, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam rinsed his mouth. Thereafter, thumma, again, thumma in Arabic denotes time. After doing this, then that was done, which shows that they were two separate things. Then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam rinsed his nose. Then he washed his face 3 times. This hadith is reported by Imam Sa'id ibn Mansur, another one of the muhaddithin, not so well known in modern times, sadly, but he is still one of the ulama of hadith who has his own book of hadith nonetheless. It's reported by him, by Imam Muslim, by Imam Abu Dawud, and by Imam At-Tirmidhi, rahimahumullah. All right, before our time runs out, let's get into the next chapter, because I had actually touched on this one earlier, which is Babu Mashil Udhunaini Bima'i Ra'si wa Sifati Mashihima. Okay, question over here. When it comes to washing the feet, is it fard to wash in between the toes with the little finger, or is it a sunnah? Washing between the toes is known as khilaal of the toes, like khilaal of the fingers, khilaal of the ears, and khilaal of the beard. All of these things are the various khilaals which are done during the course of one's wudu, and all of these things are from the sunan of wudu. They are not from the faraid. The faraid are, as we as ahnaf say, we take it on the face of it, as the ayah mentions, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. That is our faraid of the wudu. Wash your face, wash your faces, your arms up until the elbows, wipe your head, and wash your feet. If you do that, whether they are in that particular order or not, whether you made an intention or not, that will not negate the fact that your wudu is valid as far as the Hanafi madhab is concerned. Obviously, it's not the way that should be done, but if we're talking about the validity, then by doing it in this way, there is no harm. And Allah knows best. Any case, now we're onto this topic, Babu Mashil Udhunain, the chapter with regards to wiping the ears with the water of the head and the method of how you will wipe your ears. Now, the hadith I quoted earlier, al-udhunani min al-ra's, the ears are from the head, which tells us that when you are washing your head, this is when you wash your ears. Some people tend to get things mixed up and they think, well, since you wash your face in wudu, from the forehead to the chin, from one ear to the other, as it's often said in maktab classes. So, well, since you're washing from one ear to the other, may as well make khilal of your ears and, wipe it there one time. We say no. We say on the basis of this hadith, al-udhunani min al-ra's, the ears are from the head. It's not telling you your ears are on your head and not on your hands or your arms or your back. It's telling you that in the context of you making your wudu, the time to wash your ears is at the time when you are wiping your head. So let's read our hadith. The 26th hadith. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ فغرف غرفة فغسل وجهه. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما narrates that Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم made wudu. فغرف غرفة. He didn't make غرفة here. غرفة don't mean a room. It means he cupped his hand and scooped out water. So فغرف غرفة فغسل وجهه. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam cupped his hand, scooped up some water and washed his face. ثم غرف غرفة فغسل يده اليمنى. Thereafter Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam took another scoop and washed his right hand. Again, right hand here meaning the whole arm up until the elbow, not just the hand. Thereafter, ثم غرف غرفة فغسل يده اليسرى. Then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam scooped again and washed his left arm. ثم غرف غرفة فمسح برأسه وأذنيه. Thereafter, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam scooped again and wiped his head and his ears. وأخلهما بالسبابتين, and made khilal of the ears with his Sababatain, the two index fingers. Sababa is the name for the index finger. So Sababatain is a dual form, the two index fingers. وخالف بإبهاميه إلى ظاهر أذنيه فمسح ظاهرهما وباطنهما. And وخالف بإبهاميه, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam ran his thumbs over the back of his ears. So فمسح ظاهرهما وباطنهما. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wiped the outsides of the ears and the inside of the ears. So in other words, you can put your hands on your ears yourself, that your index fingers inside, or the wiping the inside of your ear, and your thumbs wiping around the back outer part of your ear. In that way, you wipe the outside and the inside of your ear. Now, if you've grown up around ulama and you've seen ulama akabirin, them making wudu, then you would have noticed this as a norm. Unfortunately, the world today has changed and people don't have the suhba, that companionship of the ulama anymore. As a result, this is seeing practically how wudu is properly made and stuff like this is not something that everybody has privy to these days. But anyway, people used to do this, and they could sit and you would see, this particular alim and he's making wudu, and then you would notice they would do this. They would make their wudu in this manner, wiping their ears exactly like this. So it's not a foreign concept to you as to how exactly the ears are being wiped. But anyway, so this is how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wiped the ears. ثم غرف غرفة فغسل رجله اليمنى. Thereafter, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam scooped up another hand of water and washed his right foot. ثم غرف غرفة فغسل رجله اليسرى. Thereafter, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam scooped again and washed his left foot. رواه ابن حبان في صحيحه وابن خزيمة في صحيحه وابن منده رحمهم الله. The hadith is reported by Imam Ibn Hibban in his Sahih, by Imam Ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih, and by Imam Ibn Mandah, rahimahumullah. And this is mentioned by Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani in At-Talkhis al-Habir. Now, one additional point over here, if you look at this hadith, if we take it on the outset of this narration, here on this occasion, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam washed each part once. So therefore, like I said, on occasion, it was washed once. On occasion, it was twice. On occasion, it was thrice. Thrice is the best. But if you did it in once like this year, there would be no harm in it either. Moving on. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الأذنان من الرأس رواه الدار قطني وفي تخريج الزيلعي قال ابن قطان إسناده صحيح لاتصاله وثقة رواة لاتصاله وثقة رواته. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Al-udhunani min al-ra's. And this is the hadith actually that I made reference to earlier. Imam ad-Darul-Qutni rahimahullah reports it in his kitab, and it's mentioned by Imam az-Zayla'i, one of the Hanafi ulama, a Hanafi imam from Somalia actually in reality. I touched on a short biography of Imam az-Zayla'i in the one of the previous Ramadan series on the ulama. And, you know, it's sad that there are so many great ulama. We tend to come across their names, but in reality, we know next to nothing about them. Imam Zayla'i, rahimahullah, was one of the great Hanafi ulama in hadith and in fiqh. And in reality, some people may have heard his name, others would not even have known that such an alim ever existed. Any case, so Imam Zayla'i mentions that Imam Yahya ibn Sa'id or Ibn al-Qattan had mentioned that Isnaduhu Sahih, the chain of narration of Imam ad-Darqutni rahimahullah, is authentic littisalihi, because it is muttasil, it's totally linked up to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the ruwat, the narrators therein are all thiqa. So it is a totally connected chain of narration with all authentic narrators. Therefore, this hadith is authentic. Now, like I said, the purpose of this hadith is not to tell you that your ears belong to your head and not to your back, but rather it's telling you, like I said, in the context of your wudu, when you are wiping your head, that is the time now when you wipe your ears, not when you are wiping your face or at any other time for that matter. Okay, let's move on quickly to the next one. 28 حديث عن عبد الله بن زيد رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الأذنان من الرأس رواه ابن ماجه ورجاله رجال مسلم إلا حبيب بن زيد وذكره ابن حبان في الثقات في أتباع التابعين كما في تخريج الزيلعي وفي تلخيص قواه المنذري وابن دقيق العيد. Hadrat Abdullah ibn Zayd radiyallahu anhu said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Al-udhunani min al-ra's, the ears are from the head. Same hadith, just from a different chain of narration. Imam Ibn Majah rahimahullah reports it, and the narrators in each chain are the narrators that are found in Sahih Muslim, except for one narrator, Habib ibn Zayd. And Imam Ibn Hibban rahimahullah has recorded Habib ibn Zayd amongst the Atba'u Tabi'een, in his kitab Al-Thiqat. Athiqat is the name of his kitab, wherein he lists all the reliable, authentic people. And he reports that Habib ibn Zayd, who was from the Atba'u Tabi'een, the followers of the Tabi'een, and he was a authentic, reliable person. This is mentioned in the Takhrij of Imam Az-Zayla'i rahimahullah, and Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah mentioned in At-Talkhis that Qawwahu al-Mundhiri, that Imam al-Mundhiri and Imam Ibn Daqiq al-Aid, these two ulama, they have given strength to this narration that it is authentic. Okay, we've got still quite a bit and time is running short. I don't think we will be able to do all of this here tonight. But anyway, if we can't complete this chapter, then at the very least, we will complete it next week, inshallah ta'ala. let's do at least one last hadith and then we can end on that topic. If anybody has any questions, you can already send your questions in now. You don't have to wait till we end. But we'll do this last hadith and then end on hadith number 29, inshallah ta'ala. Or maybe hadith number 30, depending on how much time we have. In any case, عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مسح أذنيه داخلهما بالسبابتين وخالف إبهاميه إلى ظاهر أذنيه فمسح ظاهرهما وباطنهما. رواه ابن ماجه. وفي تخريج الزيلعي قال في الإمام هذا إسناد صحيح. Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wiped his ears, the insides with his index fingers, and wiped the outsides of his ears using his thumbs, and and in doing so wiped both the insides and the outsides of the ears. This is reported by Imam Ibn Majah. It's mentioned by Imam Zayla'i that it's mentioned قال في الإمام that وهذا إسناد صحيح, that is an authentic chain of narration. So the issue of the wiping of the ears has already been sufficiently proven, but he just brings extra chains and stuff like this to lend extra strength to it, in case a person wants to come be technical and say, well, it's only one narration reported in one place, so it's sure. No, there are actually extra sources where it's quoted from too. So therefore, he brings it in for extra emphasis. We've got a little bit of time, so we can do the 30th hadith as well, which is حدثنا محمود بن خالد وهشام بن خالد المعنى قال حدثنا الوليد بهذا الإسناد المذكور من قبل هذا من قبل هذا قال ومسح رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بأذنيه ظاهرهما وباطنهما. زاد هشام وأدخل أصابعه في صماخ أذنيه. رواه أبو داود وسكت عنه. وفي التلخيص الحبير أبو داود والطحاوي من حديث المقدام ابن المعدي كريب وإسناده حسن. This the hadith is reported by, or at least for the first, not the first time, but I mean for a change, he's quoting a bit of a chain of narration. So as you know, when we come to chains of narration in hadith, then a hadith would start generally, if you're reading from Bukhari or any of these books of narration, then you would, books of hadith at least, that you would come across haddathana and stuff like this here. And I made mention of this once upon a time when we had begun. But anyway, so حدثنا, this chain of narration has been reported from Mahmud ibn Khalid and Hisham ibn Khalid, both of them. But he says al-ma'na, that that it's quoted in the meaning of the hadith. In other words, this may not necessarily al-ma'na wahid, that the narration which is reported by both Mahmud ibn Khalid and what is reported by Hisham ibn Khalid, the meaning of both of them is the same, even though technically, you may have found slight differences in the wording, even though you don't quote both wordings, but the meaning of them is one. And both of them reported from Al-Walid with the same chain of narration. What is the chain of narration? Al-Madhkuru, the one which is mentioned before this. But in any case, he say, and وَمَسَحَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam masaha bi-udhunayhi, wiped his ears, the inside, the outside, and the insides. Hisham ibn Khalid, he added in his narration, وَأَدْخَلَ أَصَابِعَهُ فِي صَمَاخِ أُذُنَيْهِ, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam inserted his fingers into the meaty part of the ear. In other words, so it's not just wiping the outer shape of your ear, but rather when you take your index finger, you also put it, like you don't shove it into your head there down your ear canal. No, but that soft part of your ear there, which is normal that you can reach, you like make Khilaal of that part as well. So that is what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam had done in this narration over here. Like I say, you don't push your finger into your ear, you wipe the outside, the hard part of your ear, and when you come to the softer part, your finger is wet and you just wipe there. That's all that is required. That is what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam had done. Rawahu Abu Dawud wa sakata anhu. Imam Abu Dawud narrated this hadith and he kept silent, which means again that he deemed the narration to be authentic and reliable. وفي تلخيص الحبير, Imam Ibn Hajar mentions in تلخيص الحبير Imam Abu Dawud, Imam al-Tahawi, both reported from the hadith of Hadrat Miqdam ibn al-Ma'di Karib radiyallahu anhu, and the chain of narration is Hasan, meaning it is reliable, it's authentic, we can derive masail and everything from it. Hadrat Miqdam, or at least that's Hadrat Amr ibn Ma'di Karib. Okay, anyway, so the Isnaduhu Hasan. Okay, that's the chapter that's found in. Any case, so that's one additional hadith. The next one, hadith number 31, is about too long, and we've only got 1.5 minutes left on the clock before Zoom cuts us off. So we'll end on this point here, inshallah. As you can see, everything, like I say, if you've grown up and you've seen your ulama making wudu and stuff like this here, you didn't know the dalil behind things, why they did things a particular way and stuff like this here. But the fact of the matter is, all of these things are established within the deen from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just because that knowledge is not so well known amongst the lay masses does not mean that it is baseless. So you can see from the hadith that we have been doing here, it proves all those practices that you may have seen once upon a time. But anyway, it is from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we've got a couple of seconds left only, so we'll end on this point here, inshallah. Until next time, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.